Hey, guess what, everybody?
What?
Americans have now received 200 million COVID-19 vaccinations. Think about this. Since President Biden took office, reaching the administration's first 100-day goal and more than doubling the initial goal of 100 million shots. Biden announced the milestone yesterday ahead of his 100-day mark next week, saying that by today, 80% of those over 65 will have had at least one shot.
So
that's incredible news.
It is incredible news. And Gene Robinson, you look at how America is doing so much better on the world stage than anybody else.
Yeah.
We need to go back and we need to actually talk about that man that we were having a laugh at his expense. And you really do. You look at the combined efforts of what happened during the Trump administration on the development of the vaccines, on the selecting of the proper vaccines. And they obviously did a very good job at that. And then you go and you look at what Biden was able to do that Donald Trump just wasn't able to, because he never had an infrastructure around him by his choosing that knew how to effectively run a government, to do these sort of operations. He never wanted to nationalize this effort. And so Trump and his team made the right choices on vaccines. And now we have a president who actually knows how to basically handle the logistics to get it out to 200 million people. We're ahead of the world, and maybe this is one time where we stop and both sides look at each other and go, okay, did a pretty damn good job.
Yeah, no, I mean, the vaccines are really a miracle if you think about it. If you think about it just in the span of mere months, we went from 0 to 200 million, and that says a lot. It was smart of the Trump administration to launch Operation Warp Speed, and the most critical part of that, I mean, there was upfront money to some of the drug companies for development, but I think the most critical part was the commitment to buy millions and millions and millions of doses of the vaccine, thus incentivizing the speed and volume with which the vaccine makers could set up. And then the absolute miracle is this new mRNA process that allowed the development of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, which are ridiculously effective. You don't get vaccines that are, 100% effective against death when you're talking about a deadly virus. You just don't get that. And this new process is a minor miracle that could not entirely change medicine, but certainly gives us a powerful new tool in the arsenal. And then, yes, the Biden administration is full of people who actually know how to make government work and to which levers to push and what to pull and how to get massive numbers of doses into arms in a ridiculously fast way. So, yes, we are, I mean, Israel's ahead of us, but we are ahead of the rest of the world in an impressive and terrifying way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we should pat ourselves on the back for
Yeah, we really should. And Willie, you go back, I certainly don't want to belabor the point because I don't want to make a lot of people that watch this show and don't want to hear anything positive about Donald Trump spit their cereal into the television set. But you go back to June of 2020, and they selected J&J, they selected Pfizer, they selected Merck, they selected AZ, and they selected Moderna. And I remember when they selected Moderna, I was like, wait, who? I mean, it was a smaller company.
Yeah.
And that was in June of 2020. And if you look at so first of all, the selections, we selected much better. The Trump administration selected much better than Europe, obviously. And then you look what those companies did from June forward to the end of the year. Come on. This is ridiculous. It's a miracle. Got everything in place. The Trump administration was just, again, they said, we don't know how to do this. States, you handle it. Biden comes in. He nationalizes it. We're up to 200 million. It's just really
Joe Biden was preparing before he started.
Yeah.
During the campaign,
right,
even.
Right. So they were preparing the logistics side of it, which even I think most Donald Trump supporters would say Trump is not good with logistics. He was not good with nationalizing this. He didn't know how to nationalize it. He didn't have the team to nationalize it. But again, you look at the selection process. Trump administration selected the right companies. Obviously, a lot of countries across the world did not. Then doubled down, as Gene said, bought a lot of the vaccines. And then these companies just went, it's unbelievable, the warp speed, yes, that they went at. And then Biden came in and figured out how to get it across. I mean, we're doing so much better than Europe right now. We're doing so much better than almost every other country across the world. It's a real change in what we were seeing a year ago on just about every other metrics.
Yeah,
and all the metrics.
Yeah, no question about it. This is historic, and there will be books written about it. I know there are already documentaries being made about how quickly this vaccine was researched, developed, and produced and distributed. And you're right, it's not a political statement to say that Operation Warp Speed set this in motion, was an effective piece of the process, because that's what public health experts say. That's what the CEOs of these pharmaceutical companies say, that the Trump administration got out of the way effectively and let them do their jobs. And then, of course, the Biden administration came in and put its foot on the gas and got these produced and distributed incredibly quickly. So now we've got more than 50% of adults in this country are vaccinated. So that's a big number, but there's a bunch of the country that says it's not even going to get the vaccine. So that's something we still have to grapple with. But for the moment, we can pause and say, this is an extraordinary achievement by America. It's an extraordinary achievement by the world that took, yes, a couple of presidential administrations and some geniuses in the world of science and medicine.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.